Welcome in, y'all. Divisional round is just around the corner. But today I wanted to go and kind of look at what potential Super Bowl matchups we could have. I'm just going to do the top 10. I know there's 16 options, but I'm going to do the top 10 Super Bowl matchups. And we'll start here with number 10, and it's going to be Broncos and Rams. So again, this comes in the back half. Um, Denver is a confusing team, right? How would they be in this big moment? I think the big thing this game has going for it is the Denver defense versus the Rams offense. That is a super fun kind of matchup there. The elite Denver pass rush. Are they going to get to Stafford? Kind of derail him there. A chess match between Sean Payton, Sean McVay. Could be a great game. Only reason this is down at 10 is when you have such an elite defense, such an elite offense like this, sometimes you could get into matchup issues and the game could get out of hand one way or the other. You saw Super Bowl 48 between the Seahawks and Broncos, best offense in the league versus best defense in the league. And I mean, that was a blowout. I mean, the defense won that time around, but it was a blowout. So, that's a concern with a game like that. But it honestly should be a good one if this were to happen. I just think there's a lot of more exciting ones in front. So speaking of which, I'll go ahead and jump to number 9. It's the Bills and the Seahawks. Really, like, no crazy storylines with this game, right? This isn't like a matchup that you're like, everyone's been waiting for this one, but it's just an all around solid matchup, right? You have Josh Allen finally getting to the big stage in the Super Bowl, seeing the Bills there. Sam Darnold gets his shot at it. A very good Seattle defense going up against Josh Allen. He'll be running around, forced to make plays, could get some fun moments, could get some, big plays from Allen, could get some big defensive plays, interceptions, forced mistakes that Allen can sometimes make when he's out of the pocket being crazy. So I think it could be kind of a chaotic, fun game between these two teams. It would certainly be an interesting matchup. I'd be there for it. I'd be there for any of these. But I think that's a great spot. But number 9, like I said, nothing like crazy going for this one. I think there's some better options ahead. Next up, though, it's New England, Seattle. And I think the step this one has over the Buffalo, Seattle one is, this is a Super Bowl 49 rematch, which, I mean, that's big. That's 11 years ago now. That's a long time, but that was such a good game, such an iconic game. I'm sure you would get so many talks about that, leading up in the week. You have Drake May making it to a Super Bowl. And I think this one could be surprisingly low scoring, funny enough. But I think it stays close if it were to happen, right? I don't think either team really has the opportunity to blow the other one out. I think it'd be close. I think it'd be a great game. These are two really good teams. And I think what's super exciting about this one is these are two teams at the start of the year. I bet nobody, you could not find a single person who had this as the Super Bowl matchup at the end of the year. And I think that's always fun and exciting. And I think that could earn itself the spot up here at 8. So that's kind of like right in the middle of the pack, right? Like I said, there's 16 options. So yeah, this one at 8. Everyone loves Super Bowl rematch because everyone loves to talk about it. Number 7, we have Texans at Rams. Now, unfortunately for the Texans, sorry, spoiler alert, 3 of the 4 teams remaining are NFC West teams. They've already played those teams. The game against Seattle and the game against San Fran. Seattle kind of dominated Houston, and then Houston kind of dominated San Francisco. Those are 2 matchups. It's like, stuff changes, right? But just from what we saw in the first time, I don't know if I'd want to see that again. This one could be a good one. Now, we saw these 2 teams meet in week 1. That's a long time ago, but they seem to match up fairly evenly. The final score in that one was 14-9, a defensive slugfest. But I will remind you that both teams fumbled inside the red zone with less than 8 minutes to play, like on back-to-back drives. So this game could have easily been like 21-16. Which that's a moderate score. I think this one would be fun. It's kind of got that Rams Denver vibe I was talking about earlier, except this one we actually saw this matchup play out, and they seem to kind of be fairly square with each other. Like that was a close game, came down to the wire. I think this one would be a lot of fun. Best offense versus best defense. Be a great time. Might be slightly lower scoring, which hurts as far as the excitement value, but defense is exciting as well, man. I know, some people don't like that, but it is what it is. Number 6, this is one, Patriots Niners. So Niners would get to be home in Santa Clara, a home Super Bowl. That's always fun and interesting storyline. But something about this game, you just look at these two teams, you look at those logos, and it just feels like a Super Bowl. This feels like a matchup we missed out on several times, like through the 2010s. Both teams were good. Both teams made trips to the Super Bowl, and they just never found each other there. And it feels like one that should happen at some point. And I think another reason you look at this and it just feels like a big game is these are two dynasties, like from different eras, right? The Niners were, a lot further back, but the Patriots more recent. But you look at these logos and it just feels like excellence. It feels like good teams. It feels like a big game. I think it'd be a lot of fun. And that's saying all that without even getting into the teams. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Vrabel versus Shanahan, I think it'd be great. Drake May, Brock Purdy. I think it'd be an exciting game. I think it'd be a ton of fun. I mean, you could argue this thing higher up the list. Honestly, it was a hard time ranking these. I was going through and I was like, man, so many of these would just be awesome. So, if your team's a little lower, don't take it personally. I think a lot of these could be higher, depending on who you ask. Number 5, Buffalo, Chicago. You got two cold weather teams. They'd be going out to Santa Clara, though, where, it'd probably be about 60 degrees. So that's not really a factor, but kind of a fun storyline there. Two teams that have, it's been a long time for both of these teams, right? The Bills have been a lot closer more recently, right? They've been right there. They can't get over that Chiefs hump. The Bears, it's just been a struggle. Haven't won Super Bowl since that 85 team. And, the Bills never winning one. These are two fan bases, very passionate, very large fan bases. And I just think it'd be a great atmosphere leading up to the week. I think it'd mean a lot. I think it'd be very intense. Like I said, great fan bases. And then you get the Josh Allen versus Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams making the big game in his second year after people were kind of wanting to, I don't know if bust is the right word, but they were kind of writing him off a little bit after last year. Him getting there would be fun. I just think it'd be a great game. I think it would kind of be a unique Super Bowl, but a very fun one nonetheless. Jumping into number 4, though, we have Denver and Seattle, a Super Bowl 48 rematch. I mentioned that one. This was a blowout last time they met. Very different circumstances now. Both teams are actually defensive this time as opposed to the high-powered offense of the Broncos back then. This would just be, like I said, a defensive battle. I think it'd be a lot of fun. You got Bo Nix making the Super Bowl in his second year. There's so many young quarterbacks, it seems, in this playoffs compared to normal, so that's always exciting. But this is another matchup that I doubt many people had before the year, because the Broncos, I feel like even if people had them doing well this year, even if the rare person had them winning their division, I don't think many people had them making their way to the Super Bowl, and many people definitely didn't have Seattle there. So I think this would just be a fun, kind of unique game. I say unique, like I said, it's a rematch. It's happened before, but it's been 12 years. I think it'd be a lot of fun. Defensive battle. Could be a classic low-scoring game. And then on the flip side of a classic low-scoring game, number 3 is Rams-Bills. Could be a classic high-scoring game. This one could honestly make a case for number 1 when you think about what these two teams did when they played each other last year. They played each other last year. Both teams scored over 40 points in a shootout in LA. If we could get anything resembling that again in the Super Bowl, it would be an instant classic. Like I said, high-powered offenses here. Defense is a little weaker. I just think it'd be a track meet. It'd be a ton of fun. I don't think anyone would say no to this one. I think the only thing that could be holding it back is like these are, in a playoff field full of teams that feel fresh. These are the two teams that have kind of, been here the last couple years, not necessarily in the Super Bowl, but like they've been playoff staples. So that could hold it back, but that could also make it more fun. You got two reputable teams in there. Josh Allen going for his first, Stafford going for his second. I think it'd be a great time. Number 2, Patriots Bears. You know, a rematch of that 80 of the Super Bowl from the 85-86 season, the 85 Bears. That was kind of a beatdown of a Super Bowl. So you get that rematch. You get a pair of year two quarterbacks, same draft class, going at it. Caleb Williams, Drake May, both having insane years, both reaching the Super Bowl very early. Two young teams, two teams people didn't expect to be there, two teams that can put up a lot of points, two big markets. You get the Chicago market, the Boston market. This Super Bowl would be huge. It would be, unless the game's horrible, it would be remembered. So much. This one has so much going for it. It would be a phenomenal time. And I don't think anyone would say no to this. I really don't. I think that, again, this could also make a case for number one as well. Great game. But at number one, we have the Patriots and the Rams. This thing has similar to some of the past ones. I think you could see a lot of points in this game. This was actually my prediction, or still is, when I started the playoffs, the playoff bracket I put out. This was my prediction. Maybe it's just hoping it happens, but this would be a blast of a game. And I think the fact you'd have two MVP candidates that are so close to each other. I mean, not often do you get two candidates that we're going into voting really not knowing who's going to win. I think it might be leaning Stafford right now based on odds, but it is tight, and it would get announced just a couple days before this game. It would be all the talk leading up to it. The winner would be trying to prove it, hold it down. The guy who lost the MVP is going to try to, make his case. A little revenge game. This is also a two-time Super Bowl rematch. These two teams met back in Super Bowl 36 and 53. McVay versus Vrabel. I just think this would be a great game. I think it'd be a high-scoring game. It'd be a fun game. You get the LA market, the Boston market, big Super Bowl, lots of fun. Two MVP candidates, and it's also kind of like that old versus young story. I know that the teams' full ages, they vary top to bottom, but you have the veteran quarterback, some older players on the Rams, veteran Davante Adams out there. The Rams have been around, more playoff experience, and then it's like you got the young guns, right? You got May over there, a New England team that is fresh to the playoffs, which is crazy to say if we said that 5 years ago. Fresh is in like recently, right? They had about 2 straight decades of playoffs there, but it feels like it's been a while. It really does. This feels fresh. I think this would be an amazing game. What would be y'all's number one? I mean, what would be your top three? Who are you looking for to be in the Super Bowl? I think there's a lot of good options this year. I just hope we end up with a really good one. But, we'll all be watching no matter what. So looking forward to it.